Hi everyone, I'm Jen Cardy. I'm the Associate Director of Career Services and Employer Relations here in the Pamplin College of Business. Thank you for joining me on this resume workshop today. We're going to spend about the next 30 minutes together chatting all things resume. We're going to go from ground zero all the way through a completed resume and discuss all the content and resources that you need to know in between to get you there. And so before we get into the layout and the content of your resume, there's a few things I want you to think about first. So let's talk a little bit about a resume and the purpose. So the purpose is to, number one, get a response. The purpose of your resume is not to get you a job or a job offer. It's to simply get you to that next step, whether that's an interview, whether that's a chat with a recruiter. So keep that in mind as you place the content into your resume. Secondly, resume reviews and advice are completely going to be subjective. And what I mean by that, so everybody's going to have a little bit of a different opinion on what a perfect resume looks like. I will tell you that my background and my opinion is certainly coming from my time spent in career services, but also my time spent in recruiting. I spent the last 9 years in recruiting, 5 of which included campus recruiting. So really, I encourage you to reach out to all your resources, get opinions, and really make those decisions for yourself. But chances are you ask 10 people about a resume and to give you some advice, you're probably going to get 10 different answers. So just keep that in mind. Recruiters only spend about 10 to 15 seconds looking through a resume. That's not a lot of time. So you want to make sure that the content you have in your resume is very clear and very concise, but that it's valuable enough to really get that attention and grab that attention within 10 to 15 seconds. By your junior year, you really should have more college activities listed on your resume versus high school activities. Now, if you are a freshman or even a sophomore and you were very involved and had a lot of good content and activities from high school years, it is very much okay to keep those listed on your resume now. But by the time you're a junior or senior, recruiters are expecting that you've been involved, you either have some good internships and work experience, but possibly some student organization leadership type experience here on campus that really should be filling the bulk of your resume. And please ensure that all of the details you list are accurate and factual. This may sound like a no-brainer, but you would be surprised how many times people think that, oh, maybe it's not a big deal just to maybe kind of shade over this and bump up my GPA just a little bit, or maybe I'm going to extend my work experience an extra month at this company, or maybe I don't like the way my title sounded, so I'm going to change that a little bit. All of these details that may seem fairly insignificant can turn into be a very significant deal. Many recruiters, the world is very small. Many are going to do background checks on certain things, and certainly they'll follow up with academic records and things of that nature, but kind of the moral of the story is if you ever do kind of fudge something and you get caught, it's really going to speak to your integrity as a person and an employee. So if a recruiter finds out that you've listed something, whether it's insignificant or not, and it's not factual, it's probably going to lead them to believe that a lot of the other parts of your resume are more than likely not going to be accurate or factual. So you don't want to get yourself in trouble there, so keep this in mind. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about kind of the baselines of what to include. And we will go through each of these in a bit further detail, but we're just going to talk about an outline here first. So first and foremost is going to be your contact information. 2 things you want to keep in mind. We want to keep that complete and professional. And when I say complete, I mean include all the means to get in touch with you. You know, you may be somebody that prefers to, get an email versus a phone call, or vice versa. Well, I say include all of your information because just like you, recruiters have particular ways they want to reach out to candidates. You know, if a recruiter prefers to call you and you don't list your phone number, then that could potentially move you out of the pile for candidacy for that position. Professionalism. And now the first thing that comes to mind for me is email addresses. I'm going to encourage you to use your student and your school email address versus perhaps a personal email address that you thought of years ago that may not be the most professional. We all have them. You may kind of be laughing at yourself now thinking about some of them, but keep it professional and to your school email if possible. Objective statement. So I have question marks here because, years ago, everybody tells you to put objective statement. Well, more often than not nowadays, you know, every recruiter is going to have their preference. Some love objective statements, and some would prefer that you maybe not include that objective statement. It's a little bit in the way now. So we're going to give you kind of a couple pieces of advice. It's up to you, first and foremost, what you decide, but if you are going to include an objective, we really want to make it beneficial to your resume rather than something fairly vague and just taking up space. So we'll talk about that a little further in another slide. Education, obviously this is going to be a big part of your resume being here on campus. You are going to include your GPA. We'll talk about that and the options there. And then for obvious reasons, Virginia Tech, Pamplin College of Business, your major, your minor, and some other areas you'll want to include there. Work experience is going to be important. Again, depending on what part of your college career you are in, this may be hardier than others, but we can certainly work with you regardless of whether you are entering a freshman, coming into campus, whether you're kind of at your mid-stage or you're a senior about to embark on, you know, your full-time position. You're going to have something to put here more than likely, so we'll work with you on the best ways to get that together. And then extracurricular activities and leadership experience. This is going to include any type of membership or leader roles within student organizations, clubs, volunteer experience, other activities in and around campus. And most importantly, just note that this is not the end-all, be-all. This is not all you have to include. You can certainly add to this, but these are just some baseline items that you want to think about when you're initially putting your resume together. Okay, so if you've been in Pamplin for a little while, you may have heard of a resume template. We have created this here in Pamplin Career Services as a starting place and really kind of a no-brainer guide for you if you're really having trouble kind of getting your resume off the ground. We partnered with some of our employer partners that frequently recruit Pamplin students to get their feedback and input on this. So that's where a lot of this content comes from. And this is just a layout. This is going to be available to you in a couple of different ways. Number one, through your Career Connect weekly e-newsletter. We'll have it there each week and then certainly in the archives. Or you can email me directly and I'll share my email information with you toward the end of this presentation. But just wanted you to get a visual because this is what we'll be working off of a lot of the examples. Okay, so going back to our list, let's start and talk about contact information. We've already talked about how it needs to be complete and professional, so let me show you what that looks like. So here, this is a fairly simple example. You're going to have just your name, your email, and your phone number up here to itself, pretty clear and concise. It is fine if you want to make that a little bit larger than some of the other things. For the sake of this presentation, we have the same font rolling through here. Current address and permanent address. So in this example, my current address is here in Blacksburg, and my permanent address is up in Northern Virginia. A lot of students will choose to do this, listing their campus address and then maybe their home address where their parents live, maybe indicating where they'd be interested in having a summer internship where they can live at home. So here are some other acceptable items that you may want to consider in this section. So you're certainly not limited to, if you have a LinkedIn profile, I will encourage you to perhaps put it up here in your contact information, particularly if you are submitting electronic applications where recruiters will be able to link over to your profile. Some of you may have a QR code that's linking to another site or other project work or something within your academics that you want to showcase. That is certainly fine to put on your resume as well. I would encourage you to perhaps put it up here small, kind of clean in the corner. And then, of course, I did want to mention that you don't have to put your campus address and your home address unless you want to. A single address is perfectly acceptable as well. All right, objective statement. So here's the one that is, you'll kind of get a little bit of both opinions. Some people are going to love it, some are going to hate it, some aren't really going to care one way or the other. So it's not always going to be necessary. You never know what's a personal recruiter preference unless they're going to tell you firsthand. I myself can kind of live by these standards I've included here. If you're going to include it, great, but you really want to personalize it and make it focused so it's effective. You do not want to put a generic objective statement that's not really going to add any value. And let me show you some examples of what I'm talking about. So here's two different objective statements that I've seen listed down here. So I'll read the first. So to obtain a sales internship in summer 2017, leveraging my customer service experience and marketing major, open to relocation. So why is that a good objective statement? Well, I'll tell you, because number one, it shows me time frame and what you're looking for. So I see that you're looking for an internship in summer 2017. I see that the industries you're looking in, I see the experience you're looking to leverage, and it shows me that you're open to relocation, so multiple opportunities. That's great. Me as a recruiter, that's going to help me a lot in narrowing down what we're going to talk about. Let's look at the second objective, to obtain a full-time job after graduation. This is what I would consider vague, and sometimes if you are simply putting an objective to kind of fill some space, maybe make your resume a little bit lengthier, don't do it. It's just going to crowd your space. Because I will tell you, especially being here on campus, you have campus recruiters coming that they're looking for that graduation date. You're going to have that in your education, and so chances are if they see December 2016 as your expected graduation, then the fall that they're coming before that, they're probably going to assume you're looking for a full-time opportunity. So unless you can make that a little more personalized, it's fairly vague and almost kind of a distraction from the rest of your resume. All right, the education piece. Let's talk about this. So here are some obvious things you're going to want to include on there, both your university and your college in Pamplin College of Business's case, your major, your minor, and your expected graduation date. You're going to want to include your GPA. So especially being in the business school, many firms require a certain GPA for certain positions. They're going to want to know that, and so many students are already including this in their resume. So recruiters, when they're coming to recruit Pamplin students, they're expecting to see your resume, or excuse me, your GPA on your resume. If they don't see it, it's probably going to be a red flag, or they're going to assume it's not a very good GPA. So we want you to put something there. If you're having trouble with this or figuring out what you should include, please come talk to us, but it is acceptable to include maybe your in-major GPA if that's a little bit better than your overall GPA, or vice versa. You're just going to want to indicate which is listed on your resume, and I will show you that in this example here coming up in just a minute. And so concentrations, this is something that this is going to vary per person. Depending on your major and your track of courses, you may have a certain concentration within your major that not every student is going to have. So I encourage you to kind of mold this and build this resume based on your career preferences and your track. For instance, there's going to be times, depending on your major, where extra items are probably going to be required of you. And a quick example that comes to mind, our accounting students, our ACIF majors that are interested in public accounting. Public accounting firms are looking for our accounting students to graduate with 150 credit hours to make you eligible to sit for the CPA. Well, in that case, they are looking for those students on their resume to not only include their expected graduation date, but to include expected graduation date with 150 hours completed. So an accounting student's resume is going to look a little bit different in that category than, say, a marketing student's resume. So I encourage you all to build upon this as you move forward in your academic career and you're moving toward your professional goals. So here's an example of what that's going to look like in our template. So I have here Virginia Tech, our Pamplin College of Business, our expected graduation date, major here, minor here, and then I chose to include an overall GPA, so that's indicated here. All right, now let's talk about work experience. So we may have heard this line before, but it's very, very true. Past performance is our best predictor of future behavior. Employers want to see what you've done. They don't want to hear about just generic information that we can assume. They want to see really what you've done in your past experience, because that is going to be the best foreshadowing for them of what you're going to offer to them at their firm and at this opportunity. So when you're describing your experience, you really want to use strong action words to describe those top achievements. Try not to reuse the same words over and over, but make it impactful. And really try, where possible, to use metrics and quantifiable results. And so these are, we're going to go through a few examples here, but this is really what is going to help set you apart and give kind of those hard factual evidence to these employers of what you've done. So this is part of that past performance, and this is really going to help them predict your future behavior and their opportunity. And so just go through these examples here. Increase social media presence. Well, that's great, but look at this next one, expanded Twitter followers by 200%. That gives me a much better visual of what this student has done in this past position. Take a look at the second one, exceeded sales goals. Well, that's great, we all want to exceed sales goals, but let's look more specifically, achieve 38% over monthly sales quota. That's what I'm looking for as a recruiter. So here's an example from our template of some experience here. So here is my company in my location, the times that I worked there, my title of sales intern, and 3 bullet points that I feel kind of exemplify, my top achievements in this role. So you'll see the numbers listed here. Completed a 12-week rotation between management and sales offices to learn and implement daily operations. So that shows me how much time I committed, and it shows me that I worked consistently over the summer in these areas. Provided customer service to over 100 guests per day via phone and in person. So that tells me not only what types of customer service experience you had, but how much and at what volume per day you were doing that, versus simply saying provided customer service to guests. And then finally, exceeded sales goals by 20% between June and August. So that's effective, especially because anybody can put exceeded sales goals. That could mean by 1% for one day. That could mean, by one sale over a course of a year. This really helps recruiters compare you to other students and other candidates interested in these positions. And let's talk about the other types of experience. And so you're going to want to list any type of experience revolving around activities, volunteer work, leadership type roles. And so this could include many different things, student organizations on campus, different clubs, activities on and off campus. You're hopefully going to volunteer in some capacity and at some point. You're going to want to quantify this type of experience similarly to what we talked about for work experience. And then certainly highlight your key roles or positions within each of these groups. So instead of simply saying you were a member or a part of a certain organization, if you held a leadership role or really participated in something impactful, you'll want to describe that. I can tell you firsthand, coming from a recruiting background, it stood out much more to me when I would see students really kind of dig deep into some of the key things they participated in within student organizations, how they made it better, really their part in that leadership, versus just seeing that they were simply a member or seeing multiple student organizations listed on a page with dates. And so here's a couple of examples of what I'm talking about. And so under leadership experience, I've decided to list my sorority here, being vice president of membership and the dates I was there and held this role. And then here's a little bit of what I did. Just, again, something brief, but it highlights, it accents my vice president of membership, and then it helps quantify it. So implemented chapter programs that have yielded in 10% growth in membership in 1 year's time. And then down here, volunteer experience. So here's my volunteer experience. I talk about how many hours per week I volunteered my time, and then the fact that I am donating to this cause. Volunteer experience is very important to list because typically, obviously, we know you're not getting paid for this. And, many different companies out there, almost all companies out there, whether it's one or multiple, have many, many relationships with charitable organizations and other industries that this will kind of hit home for. And so if you've displayed this on your resume, it could kind of tug at them a little bit and say, hey, you know what, this candidate could be a culture fit for us. This is something that's very important to our organization. We're looking for students that kind of outside of everything else they did, made time for volunteer work. So I encourage you to certainly include this information on your resume. Okay, so once you have completed your resume, let's talk about what you need to do next. First and foremost, let's try to keep it to one page. Now, this will not be possible 100% of the time, but for the most part, while you're in school, you should really be able to kind of dial back and include the most important information and not kind of spill over into multiple pages. As you gain professional experience, it's fairly common to maybe add on some pages there, But for the most part, keep in mind that recruiters, again, they only have that 10 to 15 seconds to look at your resume. And so if they have to flip your page over or turn to another page, something's going to get lost. So we want to make sure you can fit all that on one page, and so they can see all of that important information in that 10 to 15 seconds. Proofreading is so huge. I'm speaking from personal experience. I can't tell you how many, not only student resumes, but experienced professionals that did not proofread their resume. And, you know, hiring teams, it's a turnoff. And so please proofread, go through grammar, the spelling, the spacing, the fonts, the margins. You know, this is something that you may think, well, duh, it's a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised how many people miss this. So allow multiple sets of eyes to review your draft. So not only the content that you're including, but also the proofreading of the grammar and the spelling and everything else. I encourage you to reach out to all of your resources, whether that's going to be your peers, your parents, different faculty, us in career services. Get some different opinions, and you know, they may see something that you can't see just after you've been the one completing it and working on it. And then certainly review it and update it often. You're always going to want to keep this up to date, especially as a college student. You are involved in many different activities at different times of the year. You're gaining valuable experience over the summers and during your breaks. Make sure you update this. I know sometimes it may seem like an afterthought, or maybe you kind of rush to prepare it before a career fair or before an interview. It is much easier to dictate on a resume what you've done if you're doing it at the same time that you're completing the work. If you look back a year, or even a few months later, it's kind of hard to remember exactly what you did and how you made an impact at a certain organization. So try and review it and update it when you can. And then ultimately share it with your network. So I'm going to encourage you to, if you have a LinkedIn profile, make sure it aligns with your resume, and then share it. Share it with your personal and your professional contacts. These are going to include recruiters that maybe you've built a relationship with, or maybe new recruiters that you're about to meet. And then submit it for Hokies for Hire. So hopefully you guys have been to Hokies for Hire website by now. This is our university career and professional development office's site. So they house this for the entire university. This is the web address for that. However, you can certainly Google it through the VT portal and find some more information there. This is the essentially Virginia Tech's job board. So our employers are coming there to search for you, and they're also posting jobs there. So if you have your resume updated, they can even search for you, and then you'll be able to get in there and find your own jobs, but then who knows, maybe they'll come for you when you're not even expecting it. So now I want you to put this workshop to action. So everything that we've talked about, I want you to use it to build your own resume. And so where you can locate your resume template that I've been referring to again is through your Career Connect e-newsletter and in our archives, or please email me directly. I have a copy of it. I can send to you pretty instantly as long as you're emailing me within the workday. So my email is just jcarty, C-A-R-T-Y, @vt.edu. And I want to show you what it looks like. So here is the final product after building our resume template. And so I took the information that we walked through and added a little bit to it, but you can see here, let me get out my little laser pen here so you can see me better. So here is my contact information up here that I included along with my 2 addresses. Here is my nice and personalized objective that recruiters are going to love. My education piece, here it is listed right here kind of toward the top. It's in bold where it needs to be bolded. A fun fact for you, the average person when they scan a document tends to look up and at the left. So that is why we tell you to put all of your important information kind of up here toward this corridor, because again, if they can only see this in 10 seconds, we want them to get this most important information up here in that 10 seconds. But then you move down here, an extra category I decided to add in was my honors section. And then my experience here are my 3 work positions. And you can certainly change this. I'll walk you through kind of a live document and how you can change some of these things in just a minute. But you can say work experience, you can leave it at general experience, make it work for you and your resume. And then down here, I've separated out my leadership experience that we talked about, and then of course my volunteer experience. So this is what it looks like, and so we'll click through, that is the end of that document here. Here I am showing you my live desktop. So this is what, when I send you the template or you grab the template, this is what you're going to be opening up. And so we've made this a working document to make it a little bit easier and a little bit foolproof for you. So I'll go through here fairly briefly, and I won't fill out the whole thing, but just show you how a little bit of this works. So for the student contact information, we put up here in the header. I put it in the header for the purpose of, if you do eventually move to that second page, it'll go ahead and spill over for you so you don't have to refill this out. Okay, so we've got our contact information up there, so it kind of includes it there. And then here we have our street addresses. So you can just type in here anything you want. I'm just putting in campus address. Now we've blocked out city, state, and zip code. Again, trying to make it as foolproof as possible. The permanent address, home address is going to be the same way. Under your objective, this is simply a sentence, so type your objective here. Let's say, you decide, hey, I'm going to take your advice, and I don't really have, mine is kind of vague, maybe I don't need it, I just want to get rid of this. All you have to do is just delete it. So there you go, it's gone. Again, make this document work for you. Then we come down here to education. So we bolded in Virginia Tech Pamplin College of Business. I want you to come down here, depending on what your degree is in, you can choose and select, and it's going to input for you. You'll type in your major, whatever that may be, and then I want you to come over here and you'll get a little bit of a window. It's going to make you click a date. It's only going to ask for month and year, and that's what's going to show, so you don't really need to know the exact date, but let's say I'm going to graduate in May of 2017. Anywhere I click here is just going to show May of 2017. And since my degree didn't spill out too much here, you're going to want to work with this and line it up a little bit. And so I want to make sure that my expected graduation date is lining up nicely here visually with my address. And so come over here. Here's a spot to insert your minor if you'd like. If you don't have a minor, completely delete this. That's totally fine. If you want to add in some of those other areas like, I don't know, concentrations that we talked about, that's where you can do that here. And so, again, make it work for you. Down here, when we talk about GPA, we've got a little pull-down menu for you. Are you going to include your overall or your in-major? Maybe I'm going to go with my in-major. So let's see. I'm going to have a 4.0 in my in-major. So there, it's done for you. Just a helpful reminder. Here's that extra category we put in. Here's what it looks like. Whether you want to talk about some skills, some honors, maybe some certifications that you have, or maybe you want to put something completely different in there, that's fine too. Or maybe you don't need it at all. Just get rid of it. There you go. So we talked about work experience. Mine only said experience. What if you want to add work in front of it? It's as easy as that. Just do that. And here we have blank for your company name, your location, your month and year that you started, the month and year that you completed. If you're still there, just put present, your job title, and then here's your bullet points. So we have all of these very uniform in here, so when you're completed, they're all going to align very nicely and be very appealing to that recruiter's eye. Maybe you have more work experience than is listed in this template. That's totally fine. All you have to do is copy and paste and add another category. Maybe you don't have enough work experience, so you just want to take one out. Again, you can just delete it. You can make this work for you. But let's say maybe in this job here, you want to include more. You did a lot here. You want to include another area, but we don't have any there for it. So you're filling them out. I'm just putting in test here. You ran out of space. Well, what are you going to do? Well, let's come down here and maybe add another category, just like you would anything else. Just add a bullet there, and here is my added category. The document will be flexible for you. So down here is where we had just the options for your extracurricular activities, your volunteer experience, your leadership experience. You can modify these if you want to add in something completely different. I have them listed in two separate categories and an area to put more, but let's say you just want to include maybe your volunteer experience or your student groups or your leadership experience, just kind of all into one category. So let's just put extracurricular activities here and completely get rid of this one. Simple as that. And that way you can add in your sorority or fraternity, your student organization that's within Pamplin, maybe you're president of that, and so that's leadership experience is going to speak for itself once you put these bullets down here. You can keep it all separate, you can add it all together, just really make it work for you. And so, again, that's a little bit of what the template looks like. I just wanted you guys to see that it is a working document, so you can kind of work from it and adjust it as needed. So that wraps up what I wanted to share with you all today. I hope that you have received some sort of maybe extra information that you didn't know before, or hopefully it's helped you kind of get started on your resume. Please contact me after you've been through this workshop and maybe you have the template and maybe you're starting to create your resume. Feel free to reach out to me. Please try the template before you come to me maybe with nothing. But send me your resume. I'm happy to set up a meeting to chat with you a little bit more about it after you've put it together, or if you want to send it via email, I'm happy to mark it up and send it back to you with my suggestions. So these are just a few things listed here that I'm available for, and my team will certainly help with. Resume reviews, we can certainly chat and set up a meeting to talk about careers available within your major. Career search and tips and advice based on your personal career path and where you're looking to go. We can help with interview prep and offer negotiations when you get to that stage. And then most importantly, I would love your feedback on this workshop. I really appreciate all the time you've taken to listen to it. But please send me an email. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like, and maybe any ideas that you have for similar future workshops that I can produce for you would be very helpful. So I encourage any feedback there. Thank you guys so much, and good luck creating your resume.